If I could just get everybody's attention, we'll go ahead and get started while some folks go grab their seat, but I want to be conscious of everyone's time today. I'm Colonel Jamie Booth. I'm the Jacksonville District Commander for the Army Corps of Engineers. I just wanted to thank the city of Indian Shores here for hosting us today, particularly Bonnie, getting things set up, finding a larger venue than what we had planned so we could get as many members of the public in to listen to this conversation. So thanks so much. Also want to thank all the elected officials, city officials, or county officials and city officials that have come today, members of the public and members of the media that are helping cover this information today. Once again, Colonel Jamie Booth, Jacksonville District Commander. I'll be speaking most of the time, taking questions, but I have a team here that I'd like to ask for them to introduce themselves and the positions from Jacksonville District. Ashley, you want to get us started?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ashley Fountain. I'm the project manager for the Pinellas County project for the Corps of Engineers.
Good morning, everybody. Ilan Mora, the Chief of Coastal Navigation for the district.
Good morning, everyone. Tim McClellan, Chief of Real Estate for Jacksonville District.
Good morning. I'm Patrick Snyder. I'm the Chief of the Shore Protection Section, Engineering for Jacksonville District.
Good morning, Mark Rankin, Corporate Communications. And I'm David Bruderman, Corporate Communications.
So let me do some federal to regular person information. Corporate communications is public affairs. So, do we have anybody else? I think that's.
That's it.
All right, got the team. Great. So once again, I have been in command of Jacksonville District for about 2 years now, almost exactly today. Before that, total of 26 years in the Army in January. The first half of my career was on the tactical side of the Army. Think combat roads, trails, minefields, counter IED, removing roadside bombs. 2012, I switched over to the Army Corps of Engineers. It's a natural progression for engineer officers. I've been a deputy in Detroit District for 4 years. I commanded the Albuquerque District for 2 years, worked at Headquarters Army Corps for 1 year, went to Afghanistan for a year, and then came back and assumed command of Jacksonville District. I'm a Florida native. I grew up in Keystone Heights, Florida, and that's where I live. Today, being assigned to Jacksonville District allows me to work or live at the property I grew up on, though I'm pretty much on the road like this most of the time. So once again, thanks for having us here today. One of the things I'd like to quickly describe, everyone here probably thinks of the Corps of Engineers for engineered beaches, beach nourishment. We've got a much broader organization, around 1,100 folks covering Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and all of Florida. And so those 1,100 folks are effectively your neighbors. You probably go to church with them. You go to soccer games with them throughout Florida. And so, we're not just this one big federal organization coming in from D.C. We're members of the public just like you are, protected by the infrastructure that we build. We don't only just do, underneath our Civil Works Authority, we do coastal storm risk management projects, so beaches. We also do navigation, so dredging navigation channels that are federal channels. Flood risk management inland. We have a massive flood risk management project in South Florida called the Central and Southern Florida Project. Mostly folks here talk about the Lake Okeechobee. We have a massive Everglades restoration program based on that as well. And then we also do military construction in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And when disasters strike, we come in underneath FEMA and do blue roofs, generators, debris removal, and do infrastructure assessment. So a very broad team that puts on a different hat after storms to come in and help out our fellow citizens. Today I'm going to take about 10 minutes to just switch down to our coastal storm risk management projects here in Pinellas County. I'll try and give the quick history and some of the current Corps policy. Then what we'd like to do is open it up for questions from elected officials for about 10 minutes. And then we've tried to reserve about the last half hour or so of the hour so that we can open up for questions or comments from the public. And then once we close that out, I'll shift over and have discussions directly with any of the media. I think the plan is, right as we kind of close out this meeting, we'll be doing that up here. So it might be helpful if folks start to do the exiting, so when we're talking direct to the media, that it won't be quite so loud, help them out a little bit. Let me go ahead and shift on over to the history of our authority for work in Pinellas County. We go back to about 1966 is when Congress authorized the Pinellas County projects. That's Sand Key, Treasure Island, and Long Key. And what I'll try and do here is work a lot off the timeline. The Army Corps of Engineers can't do anything without an authorization from Congress. So when we say 1966, that's the year that Congress gave us authority to do coastal storm risk management projects. It was under different names back then. but to do the projects in the county. What you'll see is they weren't all built that same year. That's because we have to wait for appropriations or funding from Congress. And so if you look, in 1966, we had the authority. In 1969, Treasure Island was actually, we say the first nourishment, it was constructed. In 1980, Long Key was constructed. And in 1988, Sand Key had its initial construction or nourishment. Also on this timeline, I'll point out, is another authorization from Congress, or a law that came out from Congress. It's called WARDA 1986. This is pretty important to all of our projects throughout the Corps of Engineers because it stipulated cost share on our projects. And so when you think about the Pinellas County project, so it's a little bit different with each one. Roughly 65% of the cost of construction and nourishment is going to be federally funded. 35% will be locally funded. So the best way to say that is, on a typical project, let's say it's a $10 million nourishment, $6.5 million is going to come from the federal government, $3.5 million is going to come from the local economy or local county generally. And so that's a pretty big benefit to get after it. What I will say, and I want to make sure I hit on, is that these projects are for beach erosion control and shore protection. A lot of people will think of a beach because of its recreational benefit. Well, we acknowledge that there's a recreational benefit, but the federal interest for these projects is the protection of the infrastructure behind them. And so you can see that when we go to the WARDA 86, there's language in there in that cost sharing where it says that the federal government is not going to pay for placement of sand, and I am interpreting the language. This is not the exact language, but I will tell you how the Corps reads it, is that the federal government is not going to pay for the nourishment of beaches on private shores. And so that is one of the key drivers when you start to look at some of these issues with easements of where we go with these perpetual easements that we talk about. Okay. Last thing is, once again, the important part of us doing these placements is to reduce the risk of damage to infrastructure behind whatever that is, if it's an engineered dune or an engineered berm. And so this is more kind of public service message, and I think the folks that are around here know if there's an evacuation order, we want to make sure everybody understands the engineered beach that's out there is for protection of infrastructure. If the county gives an evacuation order, you really should heed that. We would ask that you would and respect what the county's doing. Those beaches and those dunes are not there to protect life. They are for the infrastructure. We would need people to leave out. We don't build with the idea that we're saving lives with that piece of engineered infrastructure. And so I'm going to go down here, and I'll come back to this timeline, but I want to go to this diagram down here in the bottom. Hopefully many of you all have this, so I'll describe it to you. This is just a general cross-sectional view. So if you were able to go and look down the beach and actually sink yourself down into the beach a little bit, this is what you'd see looking up the beach. And so a couple of key things are, so this would be what the natural beach would look like without the project down in this area. What we had authorized by Congress for all three of these beaches is a 40-foot, what we call engineered berm. So it goes 40 feet from the start of it, and then it goes from the average low water or low tide area at the time that we did the analysis. That obviously can change, but at the time we did the analysis for the project, and about 6 feet up. And the intent is that that's sacrificial sand. A lot of people will see a dune that's been, if we have a dune in our feature or we have beach and that sand goes away, they think that project was a failure. The sacrificial sand is what it's there for, and that does go away. Sometimes it stays in the local area. What I'll also point out is the erosion control line. Now this is a state feature where when the state decides or the county decides that we're going to go in and do a federal project, my understanding, the state designates an erosion control line, generally at the time of the project at the high tide mark or the high water mark. And so the way we'll consider that is that that's public seaward of the state's erosion control line if it's been established. And then landward of the erosion control line is often privately held, or it could be county, state, or other form of real estate, but often it's private. So I'm going to go back down to the timeline. You'll see in 1996, the headquarters of the Army Corps of Engineers establishes the perpetual storm damage easements, the standard. And so that standard, you can think of it as an equivalent of if the power company has an easement that comes with your land, right? That's how they get to your house and make sure that you have the power. The perpetual easement is the equivalent for the Army Corps infrastructure project, so that if at a time we need to come in coordination with the county, we have that easement to go in and do renourishments. And I want to be clear, and also around that same time frame is when we signed a project cooperation agreement with the county. One of the key features of that project cooperation agreement is that the county agrees to provide all the lands, rights, and real estates to maintain the project. And so that's what we've done throughout the entire country, is establish these project cooperation agreements. And so the Corps of Engineers doesn't seek that real estate. The non-federal sponsor, in this case, the county, Pinellas County, is the one that actually makes sure that we have the real estate interests we need to go in and either construct the project, operate it. The county actually operates and maintains, and then when we come in for nourishments, that we can get in at any time. There's another authority, so I told you about the 65-35 split for just the Civil Works project. There's another authority that we have called FCCE, Flood Control Coastal Emergency. And that is an authority from Congress after a storm, immediately following a storm, to come in and restore if the project has been operated and maintained at the federal standard, to go back in and restore that project to the pre-storm conditions or to the full design template. That is 100% federally paid for, and that's very important. So that FCCE authority, 100% federal, means it's all federal funds are going to provide that restored infrastructure. So you go back to the 1996 storm damage easement that was established. There's a clause in there for public access. I know that causes a lot of consternation, but I want to kind of try and walk you through the thought process that we have of why that's there. When we build a project, we want to build it to the full constructed berm, dunes, without any holes. Some of you have heard me describe it as, if you buy a pot, you expect it to hold water. You don't buy a pot and expect it to have holes in it because it's not going to perform properly. It's the same concept with these easements, is that we're going to build them the full profile, and if it's on private land, we have to have that easement. We have in the past not built to that entire profile. Since 1986, between 1986 and the 2015 timeframe, the Jacksonville District did not fully implement the standard that was established, or the policy that was established by the Corps of Engineers, due to either not fully understanding the implementation, trying to translate between a project that was authorized before the 1996 policy guidance on the real estate, between 1996 and 2015 timeframe, 2012, we weren't fully implementing that process. We have understood and we've learned through history that if we don't employ that full requirement for perpetual storm damage easements, that there have been times throughout projects throughout the entire nation where if we tried to go back in and renourish based on a temporary construction easement, that a new homeowner may not be willing to give that temporary construction easement to the non-federal sponsor. And so a lot of people ask, well, what's different between pre-1996 or what you did until 2015 and today? It's really that we've learned a lot of things as the Corps of Engineers since the 1960s, right? I was telling somebody today that just think of how many times, if you have PayPal, how many times a month do they send you an updated terms and agreements just in a month? We run into the same things. We learn and understand different ways of doing the program and doing it properly, and that's why there's a change. So let me go back and make sure I'm hitting all these time frame issues. So in 2014 is when we first notified Pinellas County that we were going to be fully enforcing the perpetual easements for coastal storm risk management. And like I said, we had up until that point either poorly understood the implementation or were partially implementing it. That nourishment in 2018 was done particularly on Sandkey, was done with the understanding that that would be the last time without all the perpetual easements that the Corps would do that nourishment. That nourishment was done with gaps. And likely if you go out today and look, I would imagine that those gaps may be areas where this past storm pushed through and pushed across some of those islands. And so you go back to those holes in the pot. And so as the commander of Jacksonville District, if you're not happy with us enforcing it, I'm the guy you need to look to. We're going to hold to that standard of making sure that if the Corps of Engineers builds an engineered feature, that it performs as it's designed. To do that, we need to get these perpetual easements established so that we know we can come back in, do those nourishments along the full profile or full template, or if we come in at 100% federal on the FCCE events, that flood control and coastal storm after a storm or emergency, that we can go right in and do it and we don't have easement issues in that process. The last thing I'll say is that FCCE event is very key. I go back to the WARDA 86 where I said the Corps' understanding of that law says that we can't place federal sand on a beach, on private beaches, for that benefit to the private landowner. And so when we come in under that 100% federal, and even the 65% on the construction, that's federal dollars going to private land or protection of private shores. And that's the connection to the clause that's in the perpetual easement requiring public access. And because that clause effectively makes that limited chunk of land federal, it makes it public. It transfers it from that private perspective and funding and our capability to the public capability of going in and maintaining the whole project. Okay, so let me go. I want to point out a couple of things. So 2015, we announced to the county that we were going to transition over to requiring the full perpetual easement. And then we went in and did the real estate analysis. And so in that real estate analysis, and what we handed off to the county in 2017 was a little bit under 500 private pieces of property that require a perpetual easement to get a complete project without any holes or gaps. And my understanding is since that time, the county has got roughly about 50% of those perpetual easements, but many remain on Sand Key. I think I've hit all the stuff on the Sand Key. Actually, if you could move forward. As you move to the Treasure Island segment and the Long Key segments, in the springtime frame, we were directed to do a full assessment of the entire program in Jacksonville District. Jacksonville District has 27, soon to be 28 of these types of projects. Since the spring, we have been going through parcel by parcel on all of them. We did start with Pinellas because we were very close to some of the potential nourishments, and identified on Treasure Island an issue with the erosion control line at the state level. That effectively holds us up. If we can't establish what that erosion control line is, we can't fully conduct the assessment of what the easement requirements are landward of that erosion control line to give the county a real estate request or a real estate requirement that needs to be procured. And so we've notified the county and I believe the state of needing to identify what that erosion control line is for Treasure Island. If you look at Long Key segment, we went in and identified 3 easements up in the Upham Beach area that still need to be acquired before we have a policy compliant project that we can go to contract award and advertisement and construction. I'm going to pause there really quick and ask Ashley or Milan, are there any major issues that I needed to cover that I've missed or you noticed that I missed? Okay. How are we doing? I'm going long, so we'll open up some more time towards the tail end. So what I'll close with is just really trying to summarize the Corps' position is, number one, we're going to build these federal projects for full profile and full template to make sure that we have a piece of infrastructure that protects the infrastructure behind it. Number two, to make sure that we can always go back in and do the nourishments and maintain that through the life of the project, or actually past typically a 50-year life for the flood control coastal emergency. Those perpetual storm damage easements are required very similar to like you'd need an easement for your power company expects to be able to maintain their infrastructure on your property if you're a private landowner. Number three is that, yes, that perpetual easement does come with a clause for private access. That effectively transitions it to public property in the Corps' eyes and the federal government's eyes so that we can make and match that 65% at the federal level or that 100% on the FCCE renourishments. And then ultimately, it really comes down to a community's decision, a county's decision on how they want to move forward. We can definitely, if the real estate interests are there, we can get forward, maintain the standard of that federal beach and move forward with construction. Other areas in the country have chosen not to go that way, and that's perfectly fine. The county, the communities could decide to do that and do these nourishments on their own. Down the line, it's a federal project. If it did come in line with our policies, we could come back in and reassume and continue nourishments on the beach. But at this time, the Corps is not going to be able to do any work on any of these 3 segments until we can get them policy compliant with those perpetual storm damage easements. And so I appreciate everybody listening through that. Hopefully that helps folks understand where the Corps is coming from. Likely, when you ask questions, we'll be able to go back and drill down into some more of these issues in a little more detail. And so with that, I think we'll switch over and go into some time period for our elected officials to ask some questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for being here today. My name is Brian Scott, I'm the House Commissioner. My understanding is
Sir.
Oh, so if you didn't hear, if you are going to speak or ask questions, I guess we need to get to the microphone so that the recording that goes up online has everybody's exact questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for being here. My name is Brian Scott, Pinellas County Commissioner. So if you could please confirm that the easements, perpetual easement, goes to the county, not to the federal government. Is that correct?
That's correct. The county holds the easement.
Okay. So
it just gives us the authority to go in and do the work. Yes, sir.
So the federal government does not take any interest in the property?
Other than being able to access it, that's correct, sir.
Okay, great. I just wanted that to be
I'm
clearly...
looking at my real estate guy.
Yeah. Just wanted that to be, just clearly stated in the public record so everybody understands that. Okay,
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the question.
Good morning, Alex Ray, City Manager for St. Pete Beach. If you don't mind to move to the next slide for Long Key.
Sure.
Thank you. So the situation that we have here in St. Pete Beach, especially in Paso Grill, is that we didn't have enough sun, what you call the sacrificial sun, on the southern portion of Paso Grill. So when the last storm came in, we had completely lost the entire dune system, and our entire south section of the island is completely exposed. You talk about protecting infrastructure. Well, right now there's absolutely no protection. So I want you to think about what can get done, not what reasons as to why not to get it done. Because this is an urgent situation that we have as a result of not having enough sun at the beginning, and now we are completely exposed in Paso Grill. If you look at that entire section, yeah, we might have some easements that we need to work on the north side, but we have a sufficient segment that is ready to go, that needs to go, and it needs to go now. So whatever we need to do to make that move, to accelerate that, is critical for our residents in St. Pete Beach. Thank you.
Sir, I appreciate it. Just a couple of quick responses, sir, and I appreciate that. Before the storm on Monday, before the storm came through, I did come through. I was at Paso Grill and Upland Beach, if I remember correctly, and I came back after the storm. So I did see the changes that you're describing. I fully understand that and appreciate it. I would say that we have been talking about these issues for many years, about what our standard is. You also talked about, yes, Paso Grill, if it's complete, why don't we just go in there? There's an issue where we have a full project or full segment. We're not going to come in and mobilize a dredge at many millions of dollars to go in and do just one portion of a federal project. We're going to need to mobilize it and do it either the full segment or likely multiple segments at one time to get that efficiency and cost.
Yeah, but if you look at this map, this is 90% of the project, right? So delay the other piece of the project, but if you can get 90% of the project now that needs to get done, we should be looking as to how to get it done.
Sure, I appreciate the comment. I understand where you're coming from, sir.
Good morning, Adrian Petrilla, Mayor of St. Pete Beach. Two questions. One, a couple months ago we had an agreement for the exclusion so that we can take care of Paso Grill and Upland Beach. So can you in engineering terms explain to us why that agreement changed? And then the second question is, based on your previous slide, if renourishment had been done in the past by the federal government, in case of a storm, you will come back at 100% federally paid to fix the renourishment. So Paso Grill, based on the previous slide, was renourished in the past. We just had a major event, significant damage from what you just said you saw yourself. So will the federal government step up and come and fix that now, regardless whether the perpetual easement is there 4 miles north?
Yes, sir. So let me try and go back and make sure I get the questions right. The simple answer to the question is no until it's policy compliant. And then I'm going to go back to your first question, which is why. Why have we done it in the past, and what changed in the 2 months? When we started to get a lot of interest in Sand Key and the issues with Sand Key, we went back in and looked at, and still are going through every project in the state of Florida that's in our portfolio and looked parcel by parcel. And when we went through there, we realized, not that it was unknown, that there were 3 easements that weren't policy compliant. And that's that change in that 2-month period that you're talking about. When we were moving forward, we stopped because with how we're executing the policy that's been out there, we're not going to move forward and build a piece of infrastructure, a project that has gaps in it like we had in the past. And so that's the difference that you're asking for in the first part of your question, sir.
Okay, I think what the city manager is referring to is that stretch at the very bottom south end, that's 3 to 5 miles south of where, so there is really no gaps. We could take care of that entire section right now, fix all the storm damage that we had, and bring it back to what it's supposed to be.
Yes, sir.
I'll just add, Ashley Fountain, I'm the project manager. So we do realize that given the timing of this project, it is due for a nourishment. We, as Colonel Booth just said, we have taken a really close look at all of our real estate within all of our projects, and we discovered that we have these gaps. So one of the things that I want to say is that we were working to nourish this project, and we will be ready to go and move out. We have the funds, but we have to have the land.
Thanks, Ashley.
Tyler Payne, I'm the mayor of Treasure Island.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for explaining why it's been very frustrating to us to be stuck in this holding pattern and not know the properties that are required for perpetual easements. So thank you for the explanation on the erosion control line, and hopefully we can get some progress on establishing that. My question in preparing my residents to understand these easements, because we've never had to explain that to our residents before, like the Sand Key project has. Can you go back to the last slide and explain a little bit more? I see in the language of the easement it says with the right of public use and access. You touched on that a little bit, but it doesn't really explain where that public access is.
Sure.
Is that on the landward side of the ECL? If a resident is signing off on this easement, where are they giving public access to the beach behind their house?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you for that. That's actually important. So we're only going to look at where the project was designed. The template, if we were looking, instead of a profile view, if we were looking down, a plan view, looking down at it, we would only look at what the template of the actual project is. What's the landwardmost limit of the project design? And from that landwardmost point of the project design to the erosion control line is where our real estate would come to the county and say, we need a perpetual easement for just this portion. So in some areas it could be 3 feet. In some areas it could be 30 feet, the distance between where the project profile is, where it ended in its design, and where the erosion control line. So it's not a standard size. It just depends on what's the shape of the erosion control line and what's the size of the piece of private property.
It's not the entire lot. It's not going to be your house. It's going to be from the erosion control line, which delineates private and public, to whatever we need to replenish sand on. So it could be 5 feet, it could be 10 feet, but it's not the entire lot. It's that limit where we are bound to put sand because it's eroded, or it may erode if it gets hit by the big one.
So how is that explained in the easement? I don't see any language in the easement that these people are signing that explains that.
Yes, sir. So if you look at the easement's going to describe what the bracket of land that we're talking about, and then the language comes after it and says, the land described earlier in the easement, there'll be a real estate description of it, requires, and then it gives us access to do all the maintenance and construction as well as that public access.
Yeah.
But it references it, and it's in a real estate description.
In addition, the way we do it is there will be a map that will talk, this is the lot, and we need 5 feet here, and we'll have X's and Y's, to take coordinate to say, this is it. The easement is for this 5 feet of this 100-foot lot, or whatever it is. So be very specific to what is needed, not the entire lot.
You good?
Well,
Go ahead.
I just,
But that's untrue. Just, you're misleading all these people. That's not what these easements are. They're all landward of the erosion control line.
the erosion control line is not, it moves, if you're looking at different cross-sections along the entire project, the profile, if we were to take a cross-section at any one point, it would look different at any one of our monuments and our project. So I just wanted to make that clarification. This is a typical, and it is very, it varies. And another reason, another point I wanted to make a clarification on for a previous question was, why can't we construct Pass-A-Grille and not Upham? Why are they linked together? And the reason why they're linked together, when we formulated this plan for Congress, what Congress authorized was we had segments, right? We had Long Key, we had Treasure Island, and we have Sand Key. And each one of those is incrementally justified on its own. So it's got its incremental economic justification. So we have to look at the costs and benefits for each segment. And Upham and Pass-A-Grille are linked together. And so that's why we have to look at them together as one.
Thanks, Ashley.
Bill Queen, Mayor of North Reddington Beach. I want to make sure of what you said about if we decided to go ahead and do the project on our own, there's no penalty from the Army Corps going forward after that. Is
That's correct. If the project comes back into policy compliance and it's not past its authorized timeline by Congress, then yes, we could resume the federal project and activity on the federal project.
So it has to be. So we still have to have the easements.
That would be policy compliant, yes, sir.
Okay.
You'd have to get the easements before we
Okay.
could come back in.
And there's no FEMA penalty either?
I can't speak to FEMA's policies and their processes, sir. I can only speak to how the Corps executes coastal storm risk management.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner Kathleen Peters with Pinellas County. So one of my questions was the same, because it's my understanding that if we do this by the county, that if a storm were to come in, we would not be eligible for FEMA assistance. And it's strictly because of the compliance.
There may be a tie between if you've got a federal project with the Corps, that FEMA's not going to come in on top of that federal project. But
Yeah, so I think there's 2 things there. Let's assume that the county builds the project today, okay? If this piece of segment is authorized under Congress as a coastal storm risk management project, if the project is authorized by Congress, so the repairs or the rehabilitation of that project is through the Corps of Engineers. FEMA will not play in on that rehabilitation of that project because it's federally authorized. The only way that FEMA, if you build it and it gets damaged by a storm, FEMA will repair it if it's deauthorized, because then it's not a federal project through the Corps of Engineers. Now, the second question I think you're hinting at is, if you build it today, okay, and you obtain the required real estate, the easements, and a storm hits tomorrow, then the Corps could repair it at 100% FCCE funds if Congress appropriates those funds, because you will be policy compliant. There is no penalty for you to build the project today and then us build it in the future if it's needed, as long as you're policy compliant. What dictates is the period of federal participation, which is, I believe, 2030
2031.
and 2031 for these 2 segments. Once that's done, then it will go into what's called operational maintenance, which is done by the locals renourishment, unless Congress extends it, which has been the case for these 2 segments. The federal participation has been over 50 years. It's gone on 62, if I'm not mistaken, because Congress has extended that federal participation.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm clear, but a little bit. So I have something else, and if you'll indulge me, I'm going to read one of your policies. And this policy is what I need some explanation on. So it's policy 16. The dynamic nature of the federal policy, legislative enactments reflect both long and short-range national priorities, and require progressive adaptation. Rigid policies are undesirable when dealing with the resource, which affect the well-being of our people and which have broad economic, environmental, and social implications. Changing technology and public priorities require flexible policies and informed leadership to meet urgent needs and to assure the welfare of the future generations. So it's this policy that I have trouble with, because it states in this policy that the Corps should not have rigid policies that affect the people, the environment, and the economy. And this policy, and although back in 1996 it was waived, and I understand you gave us notice that we have to start collecting these easements, but clearly there are some easements that we are not able to collect. But as rigid as your policy is today, it wasn't as rigid back then. And back then, we were able to protect our infrastructure. Right now, because we can't get those easements, we don't have the ability to protect those structures because of how rigid your policies are now being interpreted. And so since this is a policy of the Corps, that's the part that I get frustrated and I don't understand when it says that the Corps should not be this rigid. I'm interpreting this as very rigid, given that these have been waived before.
Ma'am, I appreciate you pointing that one out. I don't have it memorized, I'll be honest. I've been working for 4 months to figure out just the policy on coastal storm risk management. So if we can get the one that you're referencing, the actual policy, because we got a lot of them.
Yeah.
We are the U.S. government and we can find bureaucracy anywhere. If you could get us that specifics, we will take that and I will go ask questions and we will respond to that.
Okay, I'll get with Ashley.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, with Ashley, yes ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
State Representative Linda Cheney, and on your map, my district is from Indian, Rocks Beach, down to Johns Pass.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is of great concern to myself and all my residents.
Yes, ma'am.
You toured the beaches, you saw the destruction. I can't express the disappointment we have that your conclusion after seeing that destruction is to say, give us your property and don't get sand. Very disappointed in that. And my question as a state representative is, how does the federal government take state money from our taxpayers that is supposed to provide us with a service as a state and not provide that service? What law, what statute gives you the authority to take our funds and not provide a service?
So 2 things, ma'am. I want to be clear, these easements give us access to property. The federal government does not take property. We're just access to the property, number 1. Number 2, I think if I'm talking about the cost share between the federal government and the non-federal, that is done at the point of construction. And so you haven't prepaid stuff that hasn't been done. We've only asked for that cost share either at or soon after the nourishments that we have done. So I don't think we've taken funds that we haven't constructed.
Well, that just has to do with the Army Corps.
Yes, ma'am.
The federal government as a whole gets state funding. Our tax dollars go up, our tourist dollars go up to the federal level.
Okay.
And this is part of what we need those dollars to be used for. So from the point of view of the state, you have collected funds for a service that you're not providing.
I would say, ma'am, that when you're talking about tax policy that's beyond Corps of Engineers expenditures and processes, I can't speak to that.
Do you have someone that I can speak to about that?
I would assume Office of Management and Budget, possibly, ma'am. That's a very broad question.
Matthew McConnell, Assistant City Attorney,
yes,
St.
okay.
Pete Beach. Thank you. Can you go to the next slide, if you don't mind, sir? So the easement areas behind the Upland Beach, can you just explain how those were calculated? Because I've seen the diagram and I've seen the easements, and not only do they go way landward of the ECL, they actually abut the current pool behind the condo, and I don't understand how that area would ever be used for renourishment without destroying structures that are currently there.
Right, so that landward limit location is based on what we've previously constructed. So in that particular spot, that's from the 2004 beach renourishment project.
So
And
you're
that
saying
goes-
beach renourishment happened in that area prior?
That's correct.
Then I guess the question is, why wasn't an erosion control line established at that point, preventing the condo from building onto it?
So there is an erosion control line that was previously established there. We happened to place landward of that erosion control line during that event. So that's why our landward limit is behind the erosion control line right there.
And I guess when that occurred, no easements were obtained.
I can't, yeah.
Temporary
it may be
construction.
Temporary construction.
Temporary,
yeah.
okay. And then I do have a question about the project cooperation agreement. So you said it's usually, at least for Pinellas County, the county is obligated to obtain the real estate. Is there any agreements that the Army Corps is a part of that the burden is on the Army Corps to obtain the real estate? Or is that?
There may be instances that are out there, but our general policy across all the programs that I know of, the Corps does not acquire the real estate. We expect a non-federal sponsor to acquire it. There may be some out there, but I can't think of anything. We talked about it in Puerto Rico. We didn't do it, or we did it for a little while.
There is a
but aren't
clause
doing
in the
it anymore.
PCA that allows the sponsor to come to the court and request acquisition assistance that goes to our headquarters.
Okay, that's important.
There is a clause in the PCA standard template that allows the sponsor to come to the court requesting acquisition assistance, but that has to go to our headquarters for review and consideration. Sorry. There is a PCA clause that states the non-federal sponsor can come to the court requesting acquisition assistance, but that has to go up to our headquarters for review and approval on a case-by-case basis.
I got it. So what he's saying is, we have a clause that allows us to do it, but the non-federal sponsor has to ask us to do it, and then at the district level, I don't authorize it. I have to go up and ask higher if we can do it on behalf of the non-federal sponsor.
Okay. And then the last question, when it comes to, the reasoning has always been it's the policy compliance. So not to be negative, but if we never come into compliance with the policy, does that mean that the federal government will never help us with beach nourishment?
We will, if we don't get policy compliant easements, no, we will not come back in unless it's 100% on each segment. We'll not come back in either and do a nourishment or a FCC event.
Okay.
Good morning, Hendrik Bizans. I'm a local real estate broker here at Cecil
Okay,
Properties.
one second. So have we gotten through all the elected officials? Can I go to elected official? I'm sorry, sir.
First elected official.
Yeah, we were trying to do elected officials first.
Thank you for your time. My name is Frank Banker. I'm a councilman for Bel Air Beach. If you could go back to the other slide. I think, and look, you can't unring a bell here, but I think our county failed us in 2014, and I haven't only been on council for 2.5 years, but I've been addressing this issue for years. And our county officials have told me we tried to work these easements out with the people that are protesting. I said, why don't we take them to court? There was a case, Stop the Beach Renourishment. It was written by Judge Scalia in 2010 about the taking clause, which he clearly notes people cannot accept sand from emulsions. And I want to really point out R66 to R71, where you don't have any beach renourishment there.
Yes, sir.
So when beach renourishment occurs, you leave this 19-block crater. What's going to happen in a storm?
Sure.
So you're taking public sand and you're filling in R71 to R66.
And so I think what you're referring to, emulsion is, we call it accretion of sand.
Right.
That's where the sand is naturally going to move to.
Right.
So these areas get sand. And so when you see these areas, we know we're going to have to place sand in these areas. These areas just naturally accrue it. And so we don't require easements to go in and put sand there because it naturally goes there. I just want to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about here.
Right.
Sir.
So Scalia wrote that because the state owns the seabeds, that the state was absolutely correct in going into these private lands. It was not the taking clause because the private owners never restored their beaches when they lost sand through the storms. And I don't want to get into the long case, but We should have the county should have taken these cases to court, or these people to court, and got the perpetual rights, or got a decision saying we can't get perpetual rights. Because a few landowners right now are putting all of us in jeopardy of life. 50%. Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're putting us in jeopardy of life and our property right now. And we're not even a week, we're still a week out before the height of this hurricane season. If we get hit with another storm, we're all done. So I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I appreciate the comment. I will refrain from responding. I will stay out of the county's decisions.
Barry Burton, Pinellas County Administrator. A couple questions. One, the law allows for local sponsors to fund areas without easements. Why won't the Corps allow that?
Yes, sir. I agree. There is language in Ward 86 that talks about that. My simple answer is I don't have policy guidance that allows me to execute that.
So in other words, that's coming out of DC, that interpretation?
I would say the Corps does not have policy to execute.
Not to
I
put
won't
you on
point
the
it
spot.
anybody.
I understand your messenger here. You know, so the other piece is this. Okay, on these local easements, and we've heard the residents, and we've been at this for 4 years, the mayors along this coast have worked tirelessly to try to obtain the easements necessary. But we realize at this point it's not going to happen. But one of the biggest concerns we have is, one, it's perpetual, even though the project has a timeline. And two, that it allows for public access. So why provide for what the residents' concerns are regarding the easements, which would still allow you to do your job, which is to go in and make repairs to that easement area?
Sure, absolutely. Let me take a stab. I see Ashley standing up. Ashley, give me a shot here. So it goes back to that Flood Control and Coastal Emergency Authority, which goes on beyond the life of the projects, or that may be listed. If we planned it for 50 years, once it goes into that O&M state at the county level, even after that, if it's not extended out as a federal project, the county can come in and request that FCCE renourishment, and to maintain that capability, that's one of the reasons why that perpetual is in the easement. It's beyond the life of the project.
What about the requirement that area be public?
Goes back to that 100% federal funding. So I can't put federal funds into protecting private land, and to do that beyond the life of the project, once again, to get 100% federal, which is what that FCCE is, I need to have the federal interest, which is the easement requiring public access.
It's still morning. Good morning. Commissioner Renee Flowers, Pinellas County Government. Barry kind of took a little bit about what my question was. Since I think the issue is with the residents who are not signing over their easements, it's not that they don't want to have the restoration project. It is the public access piece, where you would not have the ability to control persons maybe wanting to come and utilize the beach area for recreational purposes and coming through your property or your yard in order to have a shortcut to the beach. So I am asking, is there a way to better define the public access so that it limits, so that you could carve out that language? We do it all the time, you guys. When we write policies and things, we tweak that language to make it read the way that we desire for it to read. So whether it's the Army Corps, whether it's sending it up the ladder, let's look at how we define that public access, because for me, I could say public access is simply allowing the Corps to come in and to do the project for perpetuity, the life of the project, much like Duke Energy and other utility companies have those easements so that they can come in and do what they need to do. So I would love for you all to look at whether or not you have the authority. If you need to run it up the ladder, I'll run it up to DC with you. But let's change the way that we address, or let's define the public access piece, because property owners really don't want to see, they purchased their home, I get it. They paid for that beach view, I get it. I can't afford it, but I get it. And so let's look at, I'm asking, let's look at that. And I think those of us that have attorneys within our municipality or government entities, we're happy to look at how we can dress that language that would define public access and even put time constraints on that public access.
Thank you, ma'am. So really quickly, we do. I would go back to, I'm pretty sure that the way it's defined right now only gives folks access basically from the beach side up to the limit of the project. I don't think that there's anything in our language likely that allows folks to come through somebody's front yard to gain access. And so if there is, we would love to have that conversation, and I'll go to my next phase, which is Ward of 22 gave the Corps some guidance to talk about, hey, how are you defining easements and language in easements? And so if we can have that conversation with the county and understand where we're seeing this problem with the language, we can certainly grab that and put that as part of that broader discussion in the Army Corps in response to Ward of 22. Thank you, ma'am.
Amy Davis, City Manager for Treasure Island. So I understand that we're linked with the City of St. Petersburg, or City of St. Pete Beach for our Long Key project. So in the spirit of just moving things along as quickly as possible, one of the things that we've been waiting for, I know that we have the TI mean high water line that we have to work with in getting an established erosion control line. But for the northern part of our beach, we're still waiting to get a list of what easement issues we have. So we'd like to have that, that's my request, have that for Sunshine quicker than later so we can start that effort.
Ashley, can you go to that slide?
So we have the sunset and we have the sunshine. So the sunset
Right.
area is where we have the erosion control issue, which we're working on. Thank you to the county on that. But sunshine, we're still waiting for the list of easements that you seem to have an issue with.
Correct. So the Treasure Island segment, there are portions, absolutely correct, that we have an established erosion control line, and there are portions that are not. Now, we could do a partial lands request for those areas that we have the ECL established what's private and public, and that's something we could discuss.
That would be much appreciated. We
Yes,
wanted
ma'am.
to get working on it.
All right, so
Thank you.
watch this. Tim, let's do a partial lands request. All right, we got it. We will do that, ma'am. Thank you. Oh, there you are. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. Well, Tim, come up. You got to speak right on that microphone.
I will certainly try this again. Can you hear me? No? My goodness, I thought I could project earlier. So I would like to get back to your question, ma'am. So our standard estate language is one paragraph that goes into that easement that the county negotiates with the owners. It has simply public use and access. So how we tie that to the portion of the property is describing that or relating it to an exhibit, a meets and bounds legal description or some other mapping description. And it really is just from the ECL to that landward limit of fill. So we should show a graphic or some sort of exhibit that has meets and bounds legal description on there. It is not the entire property. You're not authorizing the public to come down your driveway, hop your fence, and get to the beach. It is just that sandy beach area from landward limit of fill to ECL.
That needs to be
Yes, ma'am.
flat over.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, I think we've gotten through all the public officials. I know that went a lot longer, but we covered a lot of ground. And so what I'd like to do, we'll go another half hour for public comment. And we, as far as I know, we tried to give everybody, as they were arriving, a piece or a number. Ashley, you want to describe how we're going to do this?
Yes. When you came in, you should have received a ticket that was numbered, and we're going to try to do this in an orderly fashion. So we are going to call, 1 through 10 first. If there are any anyone who wishes to make a public comment and you have a ticket, that's from 1 to 10. Please go ahead and queue up right here. Okay, so 11 through 20. But let's just use those tickets.
Do we have anybody with tickets 1 through 10? I'm good. I still got some.
Okay, it's up to you. All right, 11 through 20. Okay, all right, let's go.
Nobody has 1 through 7? No?
Okay, I think we're going, ma'am, are you number 9?
I
Okay.
am number 9.
I would just ask if everybody, if you're leaving or having sidebar conversations, if we could just all respect the folks that are asking questions, we'd appreciate it. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Nancy Obarski from Indian Rocks Beach. I want to talk to you about the WRDA for a minute, and specifically your real estate guy.
it's the Water Resources Development Act for those of you who haven't lived this nightmare for 6 years. So you claim that that's what justifies the easements. How do you get around the fact that here's what the WRDA refers to: costs assigned to benefit privately owned shores where the use of such shores is limited to private interests? Now, if that's the case, somebody better tell that guy with the cooler down on the beach behind my house that he's on a private beach. I mean, you are treating our entire beach as if it were private, and it's not. When you talked about you don't want to put sand to protect private property, nobody's arguing with that, we understand. But tell these people that it was 0.4% of the total sand for the last renourishment that went on private property. And then tell these people that the county offered to pay you for that sand, yet you still maintain your position. Do you have any other projects, and I'm all ears on this one, where there's 461 property owners being asked to sign off, where you got 100% of the easements?
What's the number?
Is there any project of that size where 100% was obtained? And that just simply wasn't realistic from the beginning. You set us up. The Army Corps set us up to be sitting in this position right now. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll
So, going to the question on other projects, so the Flagler County project, if you Google in the news, it's everywhere. That was 240 easements. They just obtained, and then the Flagler County, Brevard County had 300, over 300 easements that they obtained. And they just obtained the last one about a month ago through the courts, through eminent domain.
So yes, ma'am. When you look at scale of projects, we do have examples where other non-federal sponsors have gained that real estate interest that we required.
Not any as many as ours. Not that many.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Tammy Parker. I'm in Tierra Verde, and you were talking about the sand that relocates. And we have a submerged land lease, and we have 24 slips, and a lot of the beach renourishment sand has ended up in our marina. The first 4 slips have filled in, and I was letting you know you can come get your sand.
Ma'am, thank you. We are looking for sand sources.
Well, we have another one. I'm Sharon Calvin.
Yes, ma'am.
I also live in Tierra Verde, and the Grand Canal has plenty of sand that could quickly go over to Paso Grill as quickly as possible. My question is regarding this, what appears to be a burdensome and contentious policy. Did this policy go through a public comment time frame? Was the public able to provide input to this, or is this the policy that at some point in time the Army Corps just decided to implement based on an interpretation of the law? And then my other question is, can Congress make the change and change our policy?
So I'll go to your first one. My best understanding, that was back in 1995, so I was still in college. All the research that I've done, I haven't come across if it went through that typical rulemaking that you were talking about with public comment. I can take that as a due out and come back and report back to the county what our findings are of what that process was back in '95. I just don't have the answer for you today. I'm sorry, what was the second question? Oh, Congress. Oh, okay. Oh, so I always get into a tap dance here. So let me go into education mode. As an Army officer, as Department of Army civilians, we cannot lobby, we cannot ask for changes to law, we cannot ask for funding for projects. What we can do is educate on the impacts of not having funding or the impacts of not having authority. And so simply put, I'll go back to, we take our guidance from the laws of Congress and then the interpretation that's turned into policy from those laws. So I would broadly say that every individual member of the public has the authority to talk to their elected officials to advocate for what's important to them. And then I will stop talking with that statement.
One last question. Did you re-nourish Daytona Beach after the storm last year?
No, ma'am, Daytona Beach is not a federal project.
Hi, good morning. Gary Huggins, Indian Rocks Beach. Thank you for coming in today. Can we go back to the slide that actually shows the cross-section of the beach?
Sure.
Would that be possible?
Actually, you can get us there pretty soon.
I have
Yes, sir.
3 questions. The first question is, I'm a little confused. I actually have a renourishment that I want to talk to up here. You guys are asking for actually property all the way back to my seawall, to here. I have my my paperwork. Out here is where the sand is going. There's about 40 foot right here. That's all dunes that no equipment has ever been on, but yet you want us to give that to open public access.
Yes, sir.
That's my question is, why do we have to give this to open access?
Okay, so just for the recording, sir, I'll just reiterate your question, which is you have when we ask you for a perpetual easement on your particular project, we're asking, or the county's asking for it on our behalf to go all the way back to your seawall,
Correct.
which you've never seen any nourishment
Correct.
placed on there.
Correct.
My quick answer would be that at some point in the life of the project, in the design of that project, we've placed sand that far back, and we've got probably a historical document that backed it up.
If he has a seawall, that means that you did not have sand back in the day when it was originally built. If you have a seawall, the seawall is there to protect your infrastructure back in the day, so the waves will not hit your home or your building.
Correct, and most of the homes that back up on Indian Rocks Beach have a seawall.
Yes, sir. And so I think, and I was supposed to say this, is likely if you look back all the way to when the county asked for this project back in the 60s, you probably had the ocean lapping at that seawall.
Okay.
And thus, when the first construction in 66, it set the sand, went back, and people don't remember that you had water that high. But there's, like you said, there was a reason that seawall was there. It's because the ocean was up against that property, likely.
Okay, so my question is, I watched the last renourishment happen and actually have it right here on my phone. You guys never came any closer than, right, way beyond erosion control line. You guys are way out here on the other side of the established dunes with your equipment, your fencing, everything. You never required any of this land. So what you're saying is that long time ago, you put this in, so now this has to become open to the public. They can come in any day, any time of the hour, camp out. Not like a public easement at all, where they come in, they do the work, they're gone. I don't have power workers out there at 1 o'clock at night working on stuff. I mean, it's a little confusing. I think that's where we're getting people that won't sign it.
Yes, sir.
Just to clear that up.
Do you want to take a stab at it more?
Yeah, so we recognize that. What St. Key has had is a very healthy project that has done its job. We've got appropriations and we have renourished on that cycle that is needed. We haven't seen a lot of big hurricanes directly impact the shoreline head on. So, but what you could have here, what you've seen is the normal erosional of the beach through every year to northeasterns to Idalia that comes out. But why we need up to that point is because that is what we call our landward limits of fill. If the big one comes tomorrow and it destroys your entire shoreline, which is meant to do that, it's meant to be there as sacrificial to take the wave attack from that hurricane so your home doesn't get damaged. That's why we need that, because our engineers, at any point, we have to expect that a big one will hit and it will take that chunk of land.
Oh, I
of the
don't
sand.
doubt it. We lost
So
16 foot of
so if
field
it
on
hits
this last
tomorrow,
Okay.
and we don't have the easements to go renourish, and you say, I do not want to give a temporary construction easement, so then we have a hole on the armor that we cannot repair. So that's the key point. you see it time and time, yeah, they're not putting sand there, we don't need to put sand. That's great. That means the project it's doing what it's meant to do, to erode with time and to build a berm that is there to protect when the big hurricane comes. If it comes and it hits, I'm not hoping that on Pinellas County, but it will potentially go to the seawall. That seawall was there because that's where it was eroded in the 60s. It's there for a reason. You don't think about it now because the Corps, the federal government, and the county and the state of Florida have been building this project for 30 plus years, and it's doing its job.
So I guess and thank you very much for explaining that. You want access in case it ever comes, so you would rebuild dunes?
We will rebuild a berm at the beach, a berm. The dunes in Pinellas were not built by the federal government, they were built by Mother Nature. When you throw sand with time, it gets blown by the wind and it builds these beautiful dunes.
We understand how that part of it works. So I guess I have two other quick questions.
Sir, we got to let some other folks ask questions, but we appreciate those.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Colonel. Thanks for coming. Colonel Mike Grier, United States Air Force, retired.
Good to meet you, sir.
Thank you. I live down in Paso Grove Beach, and you have been down there and you've seen the devastation. In consideration of what Commissioner Peters brought up, the flexibility, and I know that you're going to look at that policy, I'd like you to include in your policy flexibility discussion there the implications towards the National Flood Insurance Program. We all are paying increased policy premiums here. They're going up annually about 18%. Consider that also, because if we don't get this project done and we do suffer more infrastructure, more devastation to our homes and businesses, the flood insurance program is overwhelmed as it is. So I ask you, if you look at that flexibility, to include that discussion about the National Flood Insurance Program into that, and consider that that's going to be millions of dollars as well. Thanks for your presentation.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I just want to clarify, so we'll get some clapping. Milan made a comment about FEMA authorities. My understanding is National Flood Insurance Program, a FEMA authority. We do have engagement between interagencies, between the Department of Defense and FEMA, and I'll have to check and see how we give that feedback. But that does go back to, it's not a core Department of Defense authority to directly influence the National Flood Insurance Program, though we do acknowledge a lot of our infrastructure has a play in how different areas are designated. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I think we have number 30 here. Okay, all right, you're number 12, I think.
Who's 11? Anybody 11?
Okay, so we've got number 12. Number 12, come on up.
Good morning. My name's Gordon Navarski. I live at Indian Rocks Beach. I want to address one point. You have an area that's blank up there, and that's called Bel Air Shore. They do not get sand from the Army Corps, and only because they are a private beach. Indian Rocks Beach, who I'll only speak for, has more beach accesses than any other beach community here. And you're treating us exactly the same way you're treating Bel Air Shore. I want to know why that is, because you're asking us to give up land. You're asking us to give up land all the way to our seawall, okay, and it has nothing to do with the ECL. I heard the explanation before. If you're going to give me the same explanation, don't do that. Okay, I can comprehend, even though I'm older. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you.
We had number 12. Let's up to 20. Any commenters up to number 20? Okay, 21 through 30. 21 through 30. Come on down.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Rob Nitchie. I live up in Sand Key, in that project zone. I live in the Sand Key project area. When you were talking, you talked about a 1986 law and then a 1996 policy. is the issue about the easements going back to the law or the policy?
The easement policy ties back to that language on cost sharing. And so the law that was written in 86, the basis of that policy that came out in 96 ties back to that language on the Corps not federally funding private shores. And so that's where the tie to one of the ties to establishing the easements is out of WARDA 86, but not the only issue.
So on the easements, any discussion forward, would it require a change in law or change in policy?
It's a policy. So it doesn't necessarily require a change in law, but I will tell you that the position of the Corps today is full construction of the projects, which means for the life of the project and beyond for FCCE. I do not foresee the Corps changing the policy on these easements.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I called 21 through 30. Anyone else 21 through 30? Okay, 31 through 40.
Good morning.
Morning, ma'am.
Appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely.
Belinda Whitman, Indian Rocks Beach. It's become very obvious to me that the easement policy is not negotiable. But what might be is if the county is what's going to benefit from this, is there any way, we have county people here, is there any way the county can mandate this easement? No? I don't think you can answer that, but I think county
I'm not
can.
going to, and though be clear, the Corps did ask for this meeting, and so we didn't ask for county officials to be prepared or answer
Yeah.
questions. And so
Well, the people that are here from the county, please think about it. You know, if there's any, we all. I'm sorry?
It would have to be through the courts, it would be a thing.
Then maybe it needs to go to the courts, because I don't think we're gonna get around the easements. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Joe Farrell, Pinellas Realtor Organization. Quick question. How would someone find out which properties are within the proposed projects but have not signed the easements yet?
Is that county? I mean, not through us.
I know the answer. I'm asking for-
Right, so the Pinellas County has a map depicting what those properties are.
You can go to the Pinellas County website and go to coastal management. We have a GIS map, and the GIS map shows the beaches by segment. And you can zoom in. You can, if they're green, they have provided an easement. If they're red, they have not.
There you
Good morning, and thank.
Morning, sir.
Can you hear me? I'm a little taller than these people.
I gotta lean down, too.
Exactly. I'm Joe Wells from Indian Rocks Beach. I have property on Indian Rocks Beach. Been there long enough to remember '85 when it took out the seawalls. Elena took out the seawalls. I got pictures. I put them on your website. Thank you. And I have been actively involved ever since. I've gone door to door asking for signs because I wanted sand in front of our place. The place I own is the furthest most point west on that entire Indian Rocks coast. So I'm out there. And I shoveled sand last week off our deck and out of our pool and out of my condo. Okay, so don't plan on leaving. Been there for 35 years. My question is, and I'm familiar with the website because I lived it a few years ago, every single piece of property has a different erosion control line. Who sets that? Yours is different than mine, mine is different than yours, and when you look at it, some people have 10 feet, some people have 40 feet. All right?
Sir, it's my understanding it's the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. It's
And
a
they're
state.
not even here.
Sir, to be clear.
So how can you
we-
be on,
we
wait,
didn't-
no,
we
no, I'm
didn't
not
invite
gonna
'em.
argue, I'm not even
It's-
going down that road.
Yes, sir.
But I understand the Barak is, I'm not gonna pronounce that right, but I can understand it is so difficult. Everybody's erosion control line is different. 5 feet, 1 foot. We're this close, that's my property line, hers is different than mine. So how can they control that and require 100%? When the Corps can't even vote 100% on a policy. The Corps can't do it. Look back at their voting record. I'm not going to critique that too far. The
Sir,
second,
let me just do one clarification on that with the different locations. Likely what you're seeing is different portions of the beach that were built at different times. And so that erosion control line was likely set based on the average mean high water at the time that we did the analysis or did the construction. Likely why you see different locations that erosion control line. But I would still default to the state for a formal answer. That's our understanding.
yeah, I have a good solid high school education out of Zephyr Hills, Florida, so you all know Zephyr Hills. City of Pure Water, you may be drinking some right now. What I'd like to ask at this point is, we're at a 65-35 ballpark numbers we were talking about earlier. To do that private part of the beach, it requires private dollars. It requires our 35%. So at that control line's all that bit, why can't you take that 100% funding and earmark the 35% for the private side, which is ours supposedly, and use that other 65% to go the other 40 or 50 feet, or whatever it is. It's different.
Sir, we have a line of people who would.
That was a good question. Okay?
It was a,
I'm done.
Actually,
That was a real good question.
It's a great
Our
question.
private money, your private money.
Yes, sir.
Did you spend the night in a hotel last night?
I did.
Thank you for your 6% or 7%. We appreciate it. We hope to put that into the sand fund.
I filed a tax exempt form, but sir, to go back, and I'll just take it really quickly. That 65-35 is for the the full project when we do it.
But
right?
35% is private money, folks. That's ours.
Well, it's
We
county.
County.
Yeah. Yes.
Government. We paid it.
Okay. I guess it's from state. Thank you, sir.
It was privately in my pocket last night. Private bed. Thank you. No.
Hey, Colonel Booth, thank you for service and the whole team for coming out today.
Absolutely.
I'd like to associate myself, my remarks with this gentleman and also my friend here from Indian Rock. So as I walked the beach about 4 hours ago for high tide at Indian Shores, my name is Jeff Cathy, there was 20 feet of beach. That was it. And the dunes out in front of our property did an awesome job last week. They were a seawall, and they go well beyond the ECL. So we would look for the Department of Defense simply building the berm to protect the dunes. And that's about all we need. So as the gentleman said, if we could overlay those maps that has the CCL, the construction control line, and the erosion control line, and dot those spots so that we know where the Corps needs to go to build, then just build the berm in a lot of places. You don't need to go way up to the seawall to have a perpetual public access type easement. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, second attempt. Hendrik Bizans. I'm a broker here in St. Pete Beach, Sea Salt Properties. A lot of what I've meant to say has actually changed since the beginning of the meeting. A lot has been said. It felt a bit like a history lesson rather than a solutions-oriented session. So that's, I think, speaking for the average resident, a bit disappointing. You're saying you need the easements, and the county representative mentioned that easements are impossible to get, all of them. So that sounds like a bit of a standstill. And 250 missing easements standing in the way of the prosperity of the entire Tampa Bay region sounds a bit like a joke, in my opinion.
Thanks, sir.
Hi, I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Gina Wells and Indian Rocks Beach. We lost our entire sacrificial sand. It did its job, but we lost the entire. But just a question. These easements that have to be signed perpetually, what if the property sells? Does we have to get another signature, or does it stay with the property? So if I buy a piece of property and somebody else signs away my easement, I have to give that easement as well? Does it run with the land? Or does it?
Yeah, so basically, just like when you buy a new piece of land, if there was an easement for a
Okay.
road along with it, the easement comes when you purchase that
Okay, so we
land.
don't have to redo it if somebody sells the property or?
It's recorded. It's
Okay.
recorded and you get it in the title search,
Thank you.
basically. Yes, ma'am.
We are doing our post-storm assessments.
All right, are we,
One quick question, was our last storm considered a disaster? And how will the House Bill H342 that there's in right now covering disaster and you guys to come in and rework it, how does that look in the future?
so I'll only speak at the federal level. I know the president did declare disaster in certain counties. I don't necessarily know if it was in Pinellas. I can't speak to that. Okay. And then I can't speak to House bills. So, and sometimes that disaster declared by the president has limitations, and it's typically through FEMA authorities. And so once again, I try to stay away from talking for FEMA.
Gotcha, thank you.
All right, I think looks like we've got to the end of public questions. Or I'm sorry, no, we haven't. Okay.
I went up to 40, Colonel Booth. But our team we did have teams in Pinellas County last week doing post-storm assessments, surveying the damage from Idalia. Okay, let's talk through 41 through 50, 41 through 50. 51 through 60, okay, we have
42.
Okay, 40, all right. I'm sorry, I'm too quick. Here you go.
Hi, I'm Diana Fuller. I live on Indian Shores. I live on Indian Shores. I have refused to sign an easement for many of the reasons that people have raised today. Full disclosure, I am one of the authors of the pamphlets that were sent to every beachfront owner from Clearwater down to Reddington Beach. And if any of you would like to see a copy of that, I brought a few with me, but get with me after the meeting and I'll be happy to provide you one if you didn't get it. I just want to clear up a few misconceptions that I think have been brought forward today by the Army Corps. First of all, the WRDA does not preclude placing sand on private property. In fact, it allows for that specifically. It says that costs assigned to public interests must be borne by the non-federal sponsor, which is the county. Now, the county's offered to do that, and as Nancy Obarski told you, on the 2018 renourishment, 0.4% of the cost was for sand on private property, about $41,000. And the Corps refused that offer. So the second thing I want to talk about is the ECL. A lot of you, if Facebook is any indication, still believe that the properties owners own down to the mean high water line. And that's not true. 35 years ago, the legislature changed that from mean high water to this established erosion control line. And that erosion control line doesn't move. It doesn't matter if your house is flooded landward. It doesn't matter if sand is placed seaward. The division between private and public property is the erosion control line. That's it, period, the end. What the Corps is trying to do, if you'll put up that slide, everybody got one of these handouts on the way in?
Which one, the profile view, ma'am?
The profile view.
Yes, ma'am.
Now look at that. You see that perpendicular line in the middle? That is the erosion control line. Everything on the right side is private, upland. Everything on the left side of that line is public. You see where he's labeled the authorized berm. That's where they're putting the sand. And the easements they're requesting are on the private side. And they want the public to be able to access the private side. Now what the fellow in the yellow shirt there, I'm sorry I didn't get your name said, is that they need that sand to do, some of the sand's going to be placed landward of the ECL, and that they're sculpting these things so you could give 3 to 5 feet. That's not true. All the way up and down the beach, all the way, the easements go up to either a seawall if you have one, or the coastal construction control line if you don't. And that's basically the western boundary on your deed. So they don't want you to have any buffer between private property and public property except your seawall.
Because that's where the original construction was, and ma'am, we've got
Just one
2
more thing,
minutes.
please. A representation was made here today that these easements, that the erosion control line is different in different places. Not true. It was all set at different times. They're all recorded, but it's a straight line. And I am telling you, if you go and make a FOIA request, make a Public Records Act request, the sand is the fill template. They keep talking about the fill template and historical placement. All of it, all of the sand is seaward of the erosion control line, with a few little exceptions to make the transition on that berm, which is the 0.4% of the sand that's on private property. That's it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think I saw a few of my team members wanting to kind of make a clarifying statement there that not all of the sand is placed seaward of the erosion control line. You know, I could have put a different typical cross-section on here where the erosion control line was in the middle of that authorized berm, but I didn't. We could have put it anywhere, and the fact is that the erosion control line does bisect, and we do place sand, and we have placed sand, and if we continue to move forward, we will need to place sand behind the erosion control line to be able to adequately build this engineered berm. Thank you.
For a couple of
Thank you very much for coming today.
Yes, sir.
Brian Rutherford, a resident on St. Pete Beach, and we had signed a easement agreement, and the job that was done a number of years ago was fabulous, and it certainly has helped us up until this point. The sand is now all gone, and our signs at one time were public beach in front of our building, and the signs have been taken down. They're still available to us, and we were looking at putting all those signs back up. We have an agreement with your department to re-nourish it, and now we're being told it's not going to be re-nourished, which means the easement that we previously gave is really null and void now. So we are now on Upland Beach. We're looking at putting all of our private beach, Upland Beach signs back up, and we have the legal right to do it from what we've been told.
So I won't speak to how the easements are enforced. That's really not for me to speak to.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, so basically, because it's not valid anymore, this easement, so that's what we will be doing, and it's gonna be, and the numerous other condos and private homeowners are now gonna be putting their signs back up, private beach again. Okay, thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
My name is Kathy Helmus. I'm a resident of Indian Shores, and I stayed through this storm. I didn't stay through the last one, but I decided I needed to stay through this one. And felt very blessed that we didn't get blasted. But a berm that I had is 3/4 of the way gone. That berm, we personally, my neighbors and I, built, reconstructed by putting rocks and debris in front of it, and it worked. My question is, if that works, are we allowed to bring in our own sand, or are we allowed to put in at this line that you're saying between public and private, a seawall? Because what we did protected us through this storm.
There's a lot of layers to that, because now you've got, I'm thinking you've got
state
permitting in 404 permitting.
Permitting.
What I would say is, you have the right to do whatever, but you need to have permits from the state of Florida, FDEP, and also from the Corps of Engineers through a Section 4A, because you will be altering an existing federal project. So whatever you're doing, we'll have to see, does it affect, because you might be protecting your individual property by putting structures there, but you might be affecting the flow of sand from north to south, or south to north, and affecting your neighbors to the south.
But it is the berm that was there that we lost.
Right, so the berm is doing its job.
That's what I'm saying.
The
So
berm
if we can put that
is
berm
meant
back.
to be lost. It's meant.
It's meant
She's
to
talking
be
about her
lost?
privately built berm.
I'm
Okay.
talking about on my private
So,
property.
so ma'am, just to clarify, we told you that the county could come in and do a nourishment if they wanted to.
Right.
They would have to seek, until the project is deauthorized, they would have to seek a permit from the Corps to make a change to a federal project. It's called a 408. But so that, just like we were saying that there's a permitting process with the state and with the Corps, we would have to go through that same process if the county wants to do it on their own.
So I could go to the county and I could say to them, am I allowed to put a seawall in? If it's my if I'm on my property.
You could do that, but there are lower layers through the permitting through the state of Florida and through the Corps, especially with structures. Structures are very interesting designs for beaches.
Yeah, we can't speak to the county's requirement, but we can tell you you're still going to need a Corps 408 in what you're proposing, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. 408 permit. I apologize.
Hi, Deborah Rothenberger, St. Pete Beach. I don't have beachfront property, but I sympathize with these people that do. And I had two questions. And the first was, I believe in your presentation, which, by the way, thank you for your service.
Yes, ma'am.
In your presentation, you said that you weren't sure if the previous nourishment that you did where there were gaps, if those were areas that were washed out or if they were even affected. So whether or not that was a problem in the past. That's my first question. And the second one is, are you looking at any other kinds of solutions, maybe a combination, that would include establishing more dunes, doing more planting? Because I'm down near Pass Grill, and I can tell you where we had dunes, the beach did great. So I think it needs to be more than one solution to the problem of beach erosion.
Yes, ma'am. Let me give it a shot. So your last question, is the Corps looking at dunes instead of just a berm?
It gets washed
Some
away.
of our more modern authorized projects, and the more recent ones that we've done, do have a dune feature. As a matter of fact, we added dune features into the reauthorization, which was passed and awarded 22 for both Treasure Island and for Long Key. So yes, the answer is yes, ma'am. We still got to get to policy compliance moving forward. And I apologize, you had a first question and I just didn't write it down.
So I think today you said.
Oh, how the gaps hold up. I would just say any of the gaps that we've seen, these projects do not perform to their design intent. So if it's not built to that 6 foot, with the 40 foot with 6 in the template, it's not gonna perform to its design standard. Both the projects here in Pinellas that were gapped and some of the others in the state of Florida have not been performing to their full capability. And that's why, as the commander enforcing, that we're not gonna keep doing that. If we're gonna tell folks we're gonna protect, we're gonna do it to the level that we're saying we're gonna do it to. Okay, and can I just pause one? I'm not sure how many more questions we have. I want to be a good guest. The City of Indian Shores is hosting us. We said an hour. We've got police here and all, and so are we capable of finishing questions, or I don't want to impose, and I apologize. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I think we have number 40 here, and then we'll go back.
The question I have is the legal basis for the rule promulgated by the Corps for imposing these easements. What is the legal basis? The Corps is nothing but an administrative agency. Where is your authority to impose these easements?
So we point to the Ward 86 guidance on cost sharing and not being able to place on private lands.
Oh, that's just a ridiculous answer, because you're asking for easements all the way to the seawall. In other words, in my case, you're asking me to give up to the public 5,100 square feet of land. And you're saying because you can't place sand on private property. What's more, your statements about the historic fill line is inaccurate in every respect. You have not filled, with very minor exceptions, anything close to the seawall. It just never has happened. So if you can perhaps find out the legal basis for the rule, we'd be appreciative.
Yes, sir. I've already pointed to it, sir.
Okay, so I think we were up to 51 through 60. Okay. 61 through 70? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Katrina Hale. I have a beachfront property, and to the gentleman, to save you some time, that gentleman that was looking for people who didn't sign, I would be one, hello. But I'm a beachfront property, and I am not anti-government, anti-anything. My family was military. I'm not I'm pretty much laid back, chill, but I have a problem with the wording. And I'm not an engineer, so I'm not going to discuss engineering on couldn't you build it this way. I'm not going to talk to you about legalese because I'm not an attorney. So I'm not going to tell you that your writing was illegal or harmful or whatever. But I'm going to say, as someone who did not sign and who is not your bad citizen out there thumbing my nose at government, the verbiage in that paper bothered me. If it were rewritten somewhat, I'm not saying a free-for-all, I'm just saying maybe rethink the way it was written. Had it been written a little differently, I would have signed gladly and probably brought your refreshments out while you're working. But when you tell me in perpetuity and everyone, public access, honey, I have enough trouble keeping public off my property already. I don't need to give them anything on paper that says they can come through. Talk to me on any given 4th of July. I already have enough. So if I'm just saying, maybe we can all get together, kind of work this out, have a citizen that owns a property owner, a government official. I don't mind donating time to maybe rethink how we do this. I run a business, so it's not my house I'm talking about. I run a small hotel. So I pay my share of taxes all the way around to everything that has their hand out. I'm just saying maybe we could consider a rewrite on the verbiage.
Thank you, ma'am.
61 through 70. 71 through 80.
I feel like I'm playing bingo and getting the last number. My name's Mark Houseman. I'm from Indian Shores. 2, maybe 3 very quick observations. Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Colonel, and your team for coming down. Thank you, Pinellas County Commissioner. I didn't catch your name, but your statement was excellent that there needs to be work on the language. The language, just as the previous lady said, is what held up. I was part of the volunteer group that went around trying to get easements signed, and it all came down to the language. Perpetuity, public access. 2 words. Use them something that gets what you need done, but doesn't get people all spun up. Last comment. I think in a very passing moment, you said Daytona was done by the state, if I heard right, correct? Daytona renourishment.
Yes, sir.
Or beach preservation.
Any work out on Daytona all I can say is it's not a federal activity.
Right, and I believe it's state activity. Okay, the state senators agree. And for that reason, I am very confused why the state, although we have 1 state senator here out of multiple state senators that are represented in this area, why do we have just 1 here? And why does she have to ask a question, who do I need to speak to help this project along? Why isn't the state doing something? It's above the county. It's small potatoes as far as the federal government goes. Why isn't the state involved? It seems to me that that's the one part that's missing that can make this happen. Enough said. Thank you for your time and your organization.
71 through 80. Did we have any else? 71 through 80. All right, 81 through 90.
You can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Flynn. I represent the Clearwater Marine Aquarium. Thank you, Colonel Booth, for being here, and thank you for your service. I certainly respect everyone's priority in their private property ownership. That is absolutely your priority. I certainly understand that. But if the verbiage of this is not swayable, I want to offer anyone who has not signed their easement information on other individuals that utilize the beach. I speak for the turtles and I speak for the seabirds and shorebirds. We have nesting sea turtles that utilize the beaches of Pinellas County every year from April through October to lay their eggs and to produce the next generation of sea turtles. These species are threatened at the state level and at the federal level. Loggerhead sea turtles are the primary nesting species in our county. We are one of 2 primary nesting sites for the loggerhead sea turtle in the entire world. The other location is Oman. That location has seen a 79% decline in sea turtle nesting recently. That makes the state of Florida arguably the #1 primary nesting location for the loggerhead sea turtle. We have lost a lot of beach here in Pinellas County. We have lost a lot of viable nesting habitat for these turtles. I urge you, if we cannot come to an agreement on these easements, please think of the nesting habitat for our turtles, our nesting American oyster catchers, our black skimmers. All of these individuals are part of our community too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Jerry Newton, Indian Rocks Beach. I've been listening for a good 2 hours here, or almost, and somewhere along the line I thought we'd be talking about, I guess the term is beach hardening. It seems to me that if we're going to keep pumping the sand back and forth every few years, why aren't we doing something to preserve it better? Maybe some engineering. I go in and out Clearwater Pass quite a bit, which has jetties on the north side, and of course the big jetty on the south side. If I'm not mistaken, the sand in Clearwater Pass has grown behind Shepherd's, behind a lot of those hotels. I see more sand than I saw there a few years ago. So it looks like those jetties are effective. It seems to me like this was a never-ending conversation as long as we just keep moving sand back and forth. Why don't we do something to prevent it from moving back and forth and try to make it grow where we like it and preserve the beaches that way?
You want to take a step?
Right, so when we engineer a beach, we look at different scenarios. Structures like groins are a potential scenario. Harden the beach are also alternatives that we look into. So all of that, when we design a project, goes into the equation of what is the most economically, engineering, and environmental way to do a project. So all of those things you're talking about, yes. Do structures retain sand? Absolutely. Do they do their job? Absolutely. But what comes behind that on engineering and environmental side of the house is, well, they retain sand there, but they starve sand downstream or upstream. So you're happy if you're on the right side of that structure. I can guarantee you're not going to be happy if you're on the other side of that structure because you're going to be deficient on sand. So that's one concern from the engineering point of view. Then there is the environmental. Just had the Clearwater aquarium lady talked about. If you harden the beach, that means that loggerheads cannot nest on that beach. That's a serious concern because you're putting structures, either revetments in front of the beach, no sand, or you're causing something to prevent those.
I'm mentioning species perpendicular to shore. It would not prevent any turtle.
All right.
And in fact, the wildlife and it's good for the ecology because it all grows in the rocks or whatever we use to harden.
Right. But I will. Everybody, I was talking to the gentleman earlier. Google Miami Beach 1960s pictures, and you will see a series of groins that, and you will see clearly that right in front of that structure, there's a lot of sand, like you said, absolutely. Look at downstream. Neighbors downstream are starved of sand. So structures are a very tricky situation. There are projects that do need structures that we have built, like Lido Key. There's 3 drawings in the southern end of that project, but they're meant and they're designed especially for specific. There's a couple of structures here on the Sankey segment that are doing their job, but they're not the right answer everywhere, unfortunately.
It's worth looking into.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, almost the afternoon. Kevin Manning, first of all, thank you for your service and prior service in some very dangerous areas that you worked in. I appreciate that. I have a statement and a question.
Yes, sir.
My statement is I believe your 100% compliance is unreasonable and unflexible. If you look at any public official here, find one that got 100% of the vote. If we use the analogy, we went out on the road and took radar of every car, you would not fund public roads because everybody speeds. You won't find 100% compliance. Maybe in that specific other areas you talked about, but after today's meeting, even if everybody does a little bit here, you won't find 100% compliance. So after everybody is done suing one another, which I think will be the next steps, the homeowners will get sued, the county will sue you, the state, and all that's done maybe in 3 or 4 years. When I asked this gentleman, well, what if we could locally fund it? He says, well, we can do that. And I think there's a good argument for that if you are so inflexible, we don't win in that case, just from the public good. He said, well, then FEMA won't come in after that if there's a storm because the project is not authorized by the Corps, if I understood you right. So here's my question. If you're inflexible and you don't, for whatever reasons you have, will you authorize the project and allow the local officials and tax dollars to pay for it so that FEMA will come back in?
When we talk authority, that's Congress, or it's not the district. Congress gives us that authority. We have the project. I think what you're describing, what would have to happen, and it happens throughout the country, is a project deauthorization. Congress can deauthorize projects, and then they're not a federal project. You don't need a 408 permit from the Corps once it's been deauthorized to take actions, but you may have to seek other regulatory authority from like the state or the county. But when we talk about the authority, that's what we got in '66, and until it's deauthorized, it's a Corps project, and it has to be deauthorized by Congress.
You lost me on the verbiage there.
Yep, sorry.
Why can't you just say we authorize it and not, you don't actually do it?
Because Congress has to, sir. I don't have the authority to deauthorize the project, and or authorize changes to it, or authorize somebody. If we're saying the county builds it, what we're likely going to say under a 408 permit, what we're going to permit the county to do, would be the design template that we would do. That's if it meets what the Corps would do, we're going to approve a 408 permit, which is a modification to a federal project. Which when you hear me say 408. And then the county could come in at county expense and do that. But what that then it goes to what is FEMA under their authority going to recognize? I'm going to stay out of that. I will let FEMA speak for themselves on that issue.
Well, thank you again for your service. And that being the case, I would suggest our county commissioners ramp up their legal funding.
Hi, I'm Jose Copen, Indian Rock Beach. I have been resident of Indian Rock Beach for about over 20 years. My lot, beachfront property lot, was picked up in 2016 among some 30 lots that were asked for easement. I'm a retired professional engineer. I went to the meeting that was held by the Public Services Department in May 2016, and I explained to them that I had reviewed the prospective field program that the Corps of Engineers has suggested, and that the field profile would not hit the erosion control line, because I had the luck of spending time in Indian Rocks Beach in an ad hoc committee for beach preservation. So I had been planting sea oats, and the lots around were way over the berm height. And I explained that to the Public Services Department, and they say no easement, no sign. But I'm surprised that the Corps of Engineers has demanded a full amount of easements along the beaches. When you have surveyors, you can check that you're not in violation of the WRDA in 1986 requirement, because no sign would be placed in many of the lots that have not signed the easement. So to me, it's either the Corps of Engineers is negligent or is acting as a tool of the county for not paying for millions of dollars for the lots that they are taking. Okay?
Thank you, sir. And I think it goes back to likely what you were looking at was the design for that nourishment at that time. But when we talk about that easement requirement, we're talking about for the full project profile, if we ever have to go back in at other times, if potentially the sand has been eroded further. But I may have misunderstood the question, sir.
I think you're overextending that, and you're becoming a tool of the county for not paying for the property, because there is no violation of the WRDA at time. There is no need for you to gain access because you're accessing it from the beach. So the need for the insistence in the easement, I think is just an exorbitant error on your part, because you should survey before demanding the easement. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, John Hendricks, Madeira Beach. On your graphics, you showed a lot of cities along the coast where you're doing beach nourishment. There was one city that was left out, Madeira Beach. Madeira Beach has groins that were put in the mid-50s. And in fact, before those concrete groins were put in, there were actually wooden groins there. And there's a seawall that runs the length of Madeira Beach. We don't need beach nourishment because those groins have built the sand up there. Treasure Island, just south of us, a large part of Treasure Island doesn't need beach nourishment. They've got so much sand they could put another street or two out there to build on. Johns Pass has a lot of sand. It's all beach nourishment sand. Too much. The currents have gotten so bad in Johns Pass that over the past few years, we've done about 80 water rescues of people being swept out with swift currents. Blind Pass is closing in, which is putting more stress on Johns Pass with the currents. Something needs to be done with that sand. The shoal is too big. People say you're not an expert. I've lived there 38 years. As a matter of fact, I am an expert. So we need to get that sand out of there, but the Corps needs to look at more beach groins out there to protect these cities. You don't have to come out here every 4, 5, 6, 8 years, do beach nourishment on a lot of this if you simply put groins in. And I know you say there are ramifications up or down the beach because of that. The currents run north to south along the beach. That's how the sand has ended up in Madeira Beach. but it's also south of us. So it has not hurt the beaches south of us. So it really this whole issue, other than you need to get beach nourishment done now, long range, the whole issue needs to be rethought. You know, we haven't gotten any funding except from the state. Thank God for Linda Cheney, because Linda Cheney got us funding to dredge Johns Pass, but we're waiting on permits from the Corps for almost a year now. And it's getting worse and worse and worse, and nothing. And you know, there are times you need to get it done. You're military, you know there are times you need to get it done. It's time to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
'81 through 90, yes. I don't have enough. Okay. All right. Come on up.
Okay. Hi there. My name is Jenny Bond. I'm from Indian Rocks Beach. First of all, thank you so much for taking your time to do this. One question, was this meeting set up before the storm?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it was. So I guess it was just perfect timing.
Trust me, after the storm, I was more worried about this meeting, but.
I guess my question is, you know, sitting and listening, what do you feel our next steps as residents should be, and to go ahead and protect our homes? I think this storm was just over 100 miles offshore, and we can see the massive devastation that we had. And I would think that if a storm were to be a direct hit for this area, it would be an emotional and economic disaster for all of the state. What can we get a promise from you, like the next steps are going to be after this meeting, and what can we expect for us is going to come out of this meeting?
Well, ma'am, I think it comes down to, we've lined out where's the Corps' position is and what the Corps needs to proceed. So I think the next step is really continue discussions, which I know that the county's been having plenty of discussions on this. But there's a lot of discussions that probably need to continue to go on at the county level, decisions that the county and the local cities want to make. And then obviously whatever discussions that local citizens or elected officials want to have for advocacy if you're concerned with Corps policy or how the law is being interpreted.
Right,
I'll stop there.
Thanks.
91 through 100?
We may be there.
Are there any other remaining public comments in the room?
201.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
It was going to take me a while.
I feel very lucky to be here. My name is Alan Goins. I'm a Navy retired commander for the Navy Civil Engineer Corps. And have been involved with beach studies, beach analysis. And I appreciate you being down here. And I know exactly what you've been saying and your points and your statements. But there's so many issues here that have been brought up which have been very good on the part of the public and politicians here today. And the one is the inflexibility issue that you've identified in the Corps. That really needs to be really addressed, because the inflexibility issue puts you in a situation where we're in jeopardy and we can't get any support because of the inflexibility. And we're in jeopardy right now because of what you saw in this storm. It just 2 weeks ago, I was meeting with my board in the Condominium Association in Indian Rocks Beach, and I made the comment that we've been spending a lot of money upgrading our condominium, making it look nice, put a new recreation package. But all that's nothing compared to the downside that we face if we have a storm. And lo and behold, a week later, we have the storm. And one of the things I do with my Navy channels, I plot storms worldwide. I plot storms of all the hurricanes, where they're going. I'm usually ahead of the television stations by a couple, 3 days. I have people call me as far away as London, want to know whether they should fly into Tampa or not, based on what I found in these channels. The situation here is that the inflexibility is a major issue. When you have a situation where, as my mayor in Indian Rocks Beach told me the other day, that we're 98% approved, 2% unapproved in terms of perpetual right-of-ways, that's not logical. Doesn't make logical sense when we are in jeopardy here, serious jeopardy with our private home ownership and property. The situation here again is that I've addressed this once before, saying I'm very appreciative, and I've been through 2 nourishments now by the Corps of Engineers, and they're good jobs. You do a splendid job, tremendous effort. But I addressed it once before, saying that I'm not belittling by saying it's a Band-Aid approach, but I'm just trying to simplify my position. is somewhat of a Band-Aid approach to re-nourish the beaches. The other thing is how to get some semi-permanency with the beaches. And one of the things the Navy Civil Engineer Corps did over in Spain, and granted with some Spanish money, that we basically had to stabilize the beaches on the Road to Spain area of Spain, at the southwest corner, where we were encountering both wave action, the littoral movements from the Atlantic Ocean as well as the Mediterranean Sea. And we have this situation, the way we solved that problem, once we nourished the beaches, that we came up with a design for the tetrapod. I'm sure you're familiar with the tetrapod program. It's a little concrete program like the jumping jacks the kids play with. And it works quite well. It slows down the littoral drift. It basically stabilizes the sand to a certain extent. It adds to it. Nothing's perfect, but it does make a substantial improvement. And I just the other night I was reviewing the beaches, and they looked very good, what I saw from that. So this has been well 20 years ago. So I'm saying one thing, hopefully time will prevail, logic will prevail, we'll get these beaches renourished. But secondly is that we do need to look at something to make sure that the littoral movement doesn't move the sand up the beaches. It is a northward movement, as someone pointed out earlier. It is a northward movement of the sand, the littoral movement. And we need to find some way just to slow that down a little bit. And so you don't have to come here, and we have to go through this every 5 to 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we gotten all the questions? Terrific. Listen, I'll go ahead and close this out. We went an hour over what we talked about, so I appreciate everybody sticking around. Really want to thank the City of Indian Shores for being such terrific hosts. And what I would say to everybody that's been here, we truly appreciate the professional and civil discussion that we had today. I will tell you, nothing makes a person more nervous than going into a group of people to render some information that most folks aren't going to be happy about. So I appreciate that we've been able to hear from you. I've certainly taken away a lot of good notes and some information that I will carry forward to the leadership without the Army Corps of Engineers. Appreciate the recording. I'll be using that as well. But thank you so much for coming here today and listening to us and talking to us as well. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.